The House is beginning to vote. Can we have the picture-in-picture up, please, as we continue to talk about this? Here's what I will say about Congress. There are some rock stars in Congress, and hopefully even more coming. Anna Paulina Luna is a rock star. There are rock stars across the board. Brandon Gill, who is a very promising new rock star. However, I'll be honest, most members of Congress are incredibly unimpressive. You would not hire them to be a dog catcher. And this is the greatest thing they've ever done, and they ever will do, by the way. They've never run a hot dog stand, nor could they. They're incredibly ambitious. They're cunning and very interested in vanity. Now, again, I want to make sure it's very clear there are some rock star members of Congress. Like Darrell Issa, I don't agree with him on everything. Very impressive, very smart man. Built a business, very, very smart person. There's plenty of them. However, there are far more than the impressive is the unimpressive. They are just there to be important, to feel as if they've done something. And for them, this is the student council equivalent for the rest of their life. They get paid a nice wage, which, by the way, remember that other continuing resolution bill that got shot down? Had a pay raise for Congress, adding insult to injury. By the way, I will give a member, you know what I think the bill should be? I think someone should introduce this bill. I think it's a great bill. If we balance the budget, every member of Congress gets a $1 million bonus. I think it would be a great, great use of $535 million. I think that if every member of Congress, if they balance the budget, everyone gets $1 million. Say $2 million, make it $1 billion. Breaking news, by the way, Representative Tim Burchett has said he expects multiple rounds of voting. But I thought it was just going to be one round. That's what some of our sources were saying. Turns out they were wrong. Multiple rounds of voting. That's why we are here on the Charlie Kirk Show, to monitor all this, to manage it, to see what's happening in real time. By the way, you shouldn't be surprised at multiple rounds of voting. People are angry, and they should be angry. People are fired up. And you got these elevated student council dog catchers out there. Some of them. Some are wonderful people. Some are very impressive. That have bankrupted the country. It's indicating that there's another no vote. Look, this is all going to get sorted out. Mike Johnson's going to become speaker. It might take 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 4 rounds, 5 rounds. They want to try to create a PR spectacle around it. Fine, good. In some ways, it's warranted to have the spectacle because what has Congress delivered for us? In some ways, you got to send a message to the American people. You got to shock the system a little bit. I get it. Johnson's going to be speaker. It's got to have a little bit of a reminder that he's on a little bit of a dangerous terrain right now. But you can't extend this beyond Sunday. You don't want certification to get in the way. Totally understand it. That's a fair argument. It's fine. Look, the emails we're receiving, freedom@charliekirk.com, are 99% against Speaker Johnson. Just overwhelming. That's probably an unsustainable political equation. When you have 99% of the base of your party that does not want the speaker to continue, it's not good at all. It is a formula that is a recipe for disaster. We said the same thing during the McCarthy fight. What is the alternative? What is the plan? And eventually, the dam broke. Now, the difference, though, is that we have President Trump and we have the White House. President Trump is going to get one big legislative shot. Take your shot. And I think it's going to be a big, beautiful bill. It's going to be border. It's going to be taxes. It's going to be everything. And so I get it. If I was President Trump, you almost have no choice but to get behind Mike Johnson. Almost no choice. You can't tick off the moderates. You got to try to bring people together. I get it. Governing is hard. It's very hard. I do not envy those that have to govern. However, I will not continue to make excuses, and I will not continue to dodge and weave when people don't tell the truth. That is a category difference. You tell the truth. It takes no talent to tell the truth. The American people spoke, and despite all of the prognosticators and experts, Republicans are going to control all three chambers of government: the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Well, it'll be two branches. Yeah, I guess three chambers is fair to say. Well, two chambers, all three levers of power, you could say. There's a lot of questions, though. And today, as we are doing this broadcast, it's going to be happening live, we have a very serious Speaker of the House situation. Mike Johnson's tenuous speakership might collapse today. The new Congress is assembling, and that means Congress must select a speaker. But Republicans have the narrowest majority in living memory, and that's making things very complicated. 2 years ago, Kevin McCarthy needed 15 rounds of votes. Do you remember that? That was only 2 years ago. 15 rounds of votes to become speaker, and he lasted less than 10 months. But McCarthy went into the House vote with 222 Republicans. He could lose more than one and still become speaker. Mike Johnson is going to this House vote with only 219 Republicans. That means Mike Johnson can only lose exactly one Republican vote. That means if he loses two, there's no majority. Thomas Massie has said he's not voting for Johnson no matter what. So that's one vote that Johnson can lose. He needs everybody else. It's very, very little margin for Mike Johnson. Now, it's possible we could be in for a day of theatrics. There are Republicans who may vote against Johnson on the first ballot to show their independence, but then back him by the end of the day. Of course, every speaker vote takes about an hour. So these stunts could waste quite a bit of our time. But that is Congress for you. A lot of people are saying that if there's no speaker, it could prevent Trump from becoming president because the House can't conduct business, and so it can't certify the election results. In my opinion, I think this is actually very much mistaken. The Constitution clearly describes how the presidential results are certified, and it does not require the Speaker of the House because the Constitution says what to do directly. We went through this, by the way, with the last Kevin McCarthy carousel of votes. With the Kevin McCarthy carousel, remember, you can pass pieces of legislation without a speaker. You can do emergency pieces of legislation without a speaker. You can do anything without a speaker. A speaker is not technically necessary. A speaker is not prescribed as far as the Constitution of the House of Representatives. New members can be sworn in by anybody. A Speaker of the House does not need to do that. This is all just tradition and House rules. So, but I guess for tradition's sake, you need a speaker. Trump, for his part, has loudly come out in favor of Mike Johnson, posting on Truth Social saying that, quote, a win for Mike today will be a big win for the Republican Party. That if nothing else, may be enough to salvage Johnson, because far more than ever, this is Trump's Republican Party. And any Republican seen as sabotaging his agenda will be primaried very quickly. So look, the circumstance in front of us as the new House meets right now, the 119th Congress, is will Mike Johnson stay as Speaker of the House? And the answer is likely yes. By the way, I want to hear from you, freedom@charliekirk.com. Do you want Mike Johnson to stay? Do you want Republicans to stay behind him? The reason this is even a discussion was the way this ridiculous December spending bill was negotiated. The reason that this is even being discussed, the reason that this is even in contention is the way that all went down. Remember, Speaker Mike Johnson quietly and secretly negotiated a deal behind the scenes to create a multi-thousand page bill. I think it was like 1,500 pages to be specific, with Hakeem Jeffries and with Chuck Schumer, and create this behemoth. Call it a continuing resolution when it really wasn't. That included funding Ukrainian biolabs. That included the worst funding for the Democrat NGOs, censorship organizations. All to try to cut a deal for a continuing resolution. House members were not led into this negotiation. They were not allowed in on this conversation. They were not in the room at all. House members were not involved in any of this or made part of the process. And it now has turned them pretty angry. It has fired them up, and for very, very good reason. Many of these House members that we had on our program, such as Byron Donalds and many others, they've said, we were not even involved in this process. And look, the final deal was better than it was, thanks to you, the grassroots, standing up. The final continuing resolution was better, but we still did not win the way we should have. A CR should have just been one page. We should have got a debt ceiling, and we got zero spending cuts. All because why? Members of Congress wanted to get home for Christmas. Members of Congress wanted to get home for a Christmas vacation. Nurses, airline pilots, ER doctors, police officers, firefighters, they all have to work on Christmas, but members of Congress did not. And so, look, on this program, we're not going to lead the battalion and say we must remove Speaker Johnson. But I will say passively, we just won a mandate election in November. This should be a no-question speaker's race. But the reason it isn't is worthy of emphasis and reflection. Is that they've been trying to play games with every major issue against the will of the American people and against the will of the Republican Party for quite some time. Spending cuts, secure border, defunding the FBI. Instead, we have more money going to the FBI. We got nothing on the border. Remember when we were told by House leadership, we must give money to, we're not going to fund the government until we have a secure border. And that was all just a bunch of rubbish. It was a bunch of balderdash, a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of horse pucky. And so then, of course, the counter argument is, okay, then who? We don't have a good answer to that. That's why I'm kind of in a passive position here. But no Ukraine, we were told that there should be no money sent to Ukraine without border security. And yet we spent hundreds of billions of dollars on Ukraine thanks to this Congress. Has Mike Johnson and the House leadership earned, emphasis on the word earned, your trust and your vote? Is this the best that we can do? And I see the argument. The president wants him, and the president should get what he wants. President Trump wants Mike Johnson. President Trump should get Mike Johnson. He's gone all in. He's going to bat for him. Trump wants Johnson. Trump deserves a honeymoon. I totally respect that. There is an anonymous letter right now circulating around Congress over the last few days, all regarding very valid criticism that we share. A group of conservatives and potential opposition votes against Speaker Johnson are circulating a document laying out a scorecard that lists out multiple failures of this last Congress. While the author remains unnamed, it hits the talking points being shared by Johnson's critics. How Republicans have repeatedly added to the nation's debt, passed aid to Ukraine without the support of the majority, the GOP majority, reauthorized FISA. In particular, they took issue with how the last government spending bill was handled ahead of Christmas. Is this the best we can do? I suppose that is, I guess, the threshold we're at. President Trump wants Mike Johnson. That is what we are going to get. However, I'm not convinced that he's going to pass on the first vote. Can we continue to have that picture-in-picture, please? I think the roll call is going to start soon. And if it's not Mike Johnson, and then who? And some people say, well, give him a 100-day honeymoon. Well, we're not giving Mike Johnson a honeymoon. The person who has earned what he wants and what he demands is President Trump. If President Trump wants Mike Johnson, he earned a mandate to get the Speaker of the House that he wants. Bobby emails us, Charlie, watching the opening ceremonies, very upset with what we're seeing with Speaker Johnson, but I'm afraid we have no choice. We're getting thousands of emails, by the way. I want to hear from you, freedom@charliekirk.com. President Trump has gone all in behind Speaker Johnson. He's gone all in, all chips on the table. And he says, I want Speaker Johnson. And look, I've gotten to know Speaker Johnson. We have a very up and down relationship. It's very well publicized. And I try to give people second and third and fourth chances. I'm not going to say, hey, we need to oppose him. I get it. You got to vote for him. You got to vote for him. The thing that bothered me the most was the FISA vote, the border deception. This last CR was very demoralizing. It was very demoralizing, not because, I mean, look, you know that they're going to do their thing in D.C. where they spend a bunch of money and don't do any spending cuts, but it's that he was not involving President Trump in the negotiation process of this monstrosity bill, the incoming president, and all of a sudden, here it is, 1,500 pages, and we have Ukrainian biolabs and censorship industrial complex and just nonsense and rubbish all throughout this bill that was just thrown at us at the last second. We said, oh, we have to read this thing. Look, President Trump wants him. And President Trump has earned to have the Speaker of the House of his choice. By the way, nobody else wants this job. It is thankless. It's not easy. And it's not an excuse, by the way, to lie. I just want to be very clear. When people say, well, you know, it's a really hard job and all this, but telling the truth takes zero talent. Telling the truth is not something that requires a PhD in physics. Telling the truth is elemental to a free society. And you in the audience are fired up right now because when you are told there is no choice, you say, wait a second, what kind of prisoner of another binary that does not exist do I have to be? How many times are you told, well, you have to vote for this trashy bill because there's no time? Well, there's no time because you waited to the last minute. So there's no choice and there's no time. There's no option. So therefore, we must go with what's in front of us. And this is what creates widespread distrust, widespread rebellion against our institutions, cynicism. And it's very difficult for me to say, you know what, actually, you should trust all these institutions. Actually, you should think very highly of Congress. Very, very difficult. So I get it. I get the fury. I get the rage. In fact, this CR that turned into an omnibus, I can't defend that. And then we're going to have that pass and there'll be no consequences? Yes, because President Trump's in a very difficult position. I'm not going to say I even agree or disagree. I told the team I'm very indifferent about this entire thing. I don't have strong opinions either way, in the sense where I totally sympathize and understand that removal is based on a track record, like what did it do for us? However, removal is probably not very wise at all. And let's say President Trump said, I want Mike Johnson gone. Let's play this out. Let's say President Trump said, I want Mike Johnson gone. That will infuriate every single moderate that he needs with a two-seat majority to pass his premier legislation. So Lawler and Jason Smith and all of them would then get infuriated at President Trump and not vote for any of the piece of legislation that President Trump wants. Don Bacon, they would all say, President Trump, go pound sand. We're not going to vote for your border stuff. We're not going to vote for your tax stuff. We're not going to vote for any of it. And then you don't even have a replacement. So there is no choice. There is no replacement. So President Trump's in a very, very difficult position here. So I can understand why he has made the decision that he's made. And it's very annoying for everybody in this audience. And to be perfectly honest, it's irritating and it makes us very angry because we worked so hard and we won this election triumph. And then we look at Congress and we say, we could do a lot better. That's not just a Mike Johnson thing. It's a legislative results thing. By the way, I have become a premier expert on this program in every single excuse. Oh, it's too close to an election, so we can't do spending cuts. Oh, it's Christmas, so I need a vacation. We don't have any other option for speaker. It's too late on a deadline and the debt ceiling, and the whole country is going to go into default. We know all the excuses. And the base, the backbone, the spine of the Republican Party, the vanguard of the nation, you're not buying those excuses much anymore. So I want to hear from you, freedom@charliekirk.com. President Trump gets what President Trump wants. He wants Mike Johnson, and I bet he's going to get him.